Hi, my name is Jay Patel. I'm a student at UC Berkeley, taking a class under Professor Lavin called IEOR 190G, and it's on the smartphone patent war. This week, we're covering a company that you might not typically think of as being involved in smartphones. This week, we're covering Barnes& Noble. Now, Barnes& Noble is a company that sells many books, typically paperback. They use their online website. You can go in the store, but they sell books. Quite recently, in the last couple of years, they and Amazon, as a major competitor, have created different devices that allow you to read ebooks. So instead of reading books, a physical manifestation on text on a page, we can now read text on like a tablet-like device, not a laptop, not an iPad, but a tablet made specifically for reading books. Uh, so Barnes& Noble has created what they call the Nook. It runs on Android, which is Google's free operating system, and this is actually the source of Barnes& Noble's current patent litigation with Microsoft. What's really surprising before I get into Microsoft and Barnes& Noble's um, current battle is that in previous years, Microsoft had actually allied with Barnes& Noble. So it's just interesting to see how business alliances can shift when one party decides that it needs to make a bigger profit. Now, um, now Microsoft has sued Barnes& Noble on five different, alleging Barnes& Noble's infringed on five different patents. Microsoft has since dropped one of them, the 522 patent, which it claims this by dropping this patent, it will now streamline the process in court. And Microsoft also is quick to say that they didn't concede that patent on its merits, which, in my personal opinion, I'm not really sure why you would toss out another patent. If you can make more money off keeping it in the case, unless it's compromised on the basis of merits. Now, um, Microsoft wants to get licensing fees. So Microsoft actually, it's estimated that 70% of devices that run Android have licensing deals with Microsoft because Microsoft, since it's been in this game for so long, has created so many patents and has filed so many patents that essentially just to do the basic building blocks to sell a product, you pretty much license it with Microsoft. Barnes& Noble is one of those rare holdouts which has decided that it's not going to pay Microsoft licensing fee. Number one, because Barnes& Noble doesn't really have that kind of money, and number two, because Barnes& Noble also argues that the claims that Microsoft is making are way too basic and are first off that they should be invalid because of previous findings of prior art in other countries, and number two, because they're so basic that it stifles innovation. Now, the four claims that Microsoft is still suing Barnes & Noble for include the 372 patent, which is a display by image after text, the 551 patent, which has handles for to change the selection area size when you're selecting a text, and the 233 patent, which stores text annotations. Um, so Microsoft is trying to get licensing fees, whereas Barnes & Noble is trying to keep that from happening. Um, Now, it's again, it's an entirely business ploy. I don't really think Microsoft if it wasn't to get money, Microsoft wouldn't really care that Barnes & Noble is using this technology that Microsoft apparently patented. Um, but it's really interesting how if Microsoft is suing on the brick to something that Barnes & Noble has created, and on my personal opinion, I really just don't think that that's something that's really that viable. Um, like it's just so basic. It kind of stifles innovation when you kind of sue off of that, which is a general theme we've seen in the smartphone patent war. That companies will sue just to make money. But when you think about what stifles innovation, what keeps the industry going forward, um, those practices that are best for the industry are not the ones that are currently in place. So I was actually reading a really interesting piece that discussed what the difference is between when do IP rights and protecting your IP rights become antitrust wrongs, especially in this case as applied to Microsoft. And at Barnes & Noble. Now, does Microsoft's assertiveness eventually become anti-competitive bullying? We saw these claims come up back in the 90s when Microsoft was kind of bullying its way around in the PC realm. Kind of see that again. It's typical Microsoft policy. It's also, before I end this, it's also really interesting to note that part of the reason why these trials are so important is that previously all these lawsuits would just take weeks to complete. And so, you wouldn't really lose much as a company. You'd settle, or you'd figure out what you're going to do, and you can move on quick. Nowadays, with the amount of time that goes through these and the amount of things that have been filed, these court cases can stretch valuable months. So, I don't see Barnes & Noble giving up, especially because they claim that Microsoft doesn't have a right to the patents that it's claiming, and I don't see Microsoft giving up. So this case will end hopefully soon for Barnes & Noble's sake. Thank you for listening.